China showcased its military might in a lavish parade to commemorate its victory over Japan in the Second World War. Some 12,000 military personnel, more than 500 pieces of equipment and 200 aircrafts are taking part in the parade. The victory parade is designed to be a grand demonstration of the country's military prowess. This massive show of military might is expected to trigger an arms race among countries which have territorial disputes with China. In fact, Chinese president announced that China will cut its troops by 3 lakh. Russian President Vladimir Putin, South Korea's president and UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon are among the biggest names in attendance of this parade. Okay, so there you see this military parade that is being organized by China. It's to commemorate the victory of Japan in the Second World War. And as you can see, a very elaborate presence there of the military, of the Chinese military. Some 12,000 military personnel, more than 500 pieces of equipment, 200 aircraft are expected to take part in this massive parade that is taking place in Beijing. Strategic. Okay, we have with us Commodore Uday Bhaskar. Sir, good morning. Thanks so much for speaking to us on India Today. So we can see an elaborate display there of, the Chinese military might.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, as far as Beijing is concerned, today's anniversary, the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II, which they are now projecting, of course, as the war of aggression against Japan, has many levels of symbolism. And the foremost, of course, is the fact that as far as China is concerned, the old adage that power flows from the barrel of a gun, meaning that for the Chinese Communist Party, their military capability is still a very, very important attribute. And my own assessment or interpretation is that President Xi Jinping had identified the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II.
Right.
To mark what you might describe as an assertion of China's own place in the Asian context, and the fact that Japan's apology over the last few decades is not adequate. And so it's a very interesting kind of means by which war and remembrance are being used to buttress both the position of the Chinese Communist Party.
Right.
And the subtext is the message to China's interlocutors, such as the United States and all the other Asian neighbors, about both the Chinese profile and their resolve. That's how I would characterize it.
Okay, that's interesting. The message that has been sent out of this lavish parade to mark the defeat of, Japan in World War II. We can see China there showcasing its military might on an unprecedented scale. But if you could just elaborate more, sir, on that message, and how would other countries view this very lavish parade that we are all getting to see?
Well, as an analyst, I think all the people who are watching the parade would not help but notice that there is a huge range of Chinese military inventory on display. And in the run-up to the parade, the Chinese authorities also indicated that more than 3/4 of the platforms and the related weaponry on display is of Chinese design and manufacture. Now, that's a very important message as far as China's own self-sufficiency index in the military industry is concerned. And concurrently, if you look at the guest list, China has been able to have what you might describe again as the A list, where you have the Russian president, Mr. Putin, over there, along with, as far as the region is concerned, South Korea, Vietnam, interestingly, and Myanmar are represented at the level of their respective presidents, as also South Africa. So from the Indian perspective, you have 2 of the BRIC countries, that is both Russia and South Africa are represented there. And East Asia also, I think, is acknowledging China's own ascendancy at this point in time.
Right.
And this to me is the diplomatic subtext. And the Indian response also is quite instructive at two levels. One, India was invited to send a contingent of troops because,
Yes.
as you'll recall, many countries
Absolutely.
have done World War II. And when Moscow did their parade in May, our president, the Honorable Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, was there. And so also there was an Indian contingent marching in Moscow.
Right.
But in the case of Beijing, India chose not to send troops, but sent the junior minister, General V.K. Singh, which I think has its own, again, shall we say, diplomatic signaling as far as India and China are concerned. And
Right.
as always, we have the China-Pakistan angle also, where Pakistan has not only sent troops, but the Pakistani president is also there. So this, I think, is also part of what you might characterize as the diplomatic subtext of the parade in Beijing.
We've seen in the past many leaders, expressing their reluctance to be associated with, a parade like this. Is it true that many major leaders, including that from the US and UK, including Australia, have, shunned this event? Because in the past we have seen China's, growing military capability that is often very keenly watched by other countries as well, Commodore Bhaskar.
No, it is very evident that many of the major quote-unquote democracies have chosen not to have the highest level of political representation. And India is a good example. And I think for China also, they would have to reflect over what has been the impact of China's quote-unquote peaceful rise that they often wish to project as far as their Asian neighbors are concerned. Because China's actions both in the South China Sea and in relation to Japan, as far as the East Sea are concerned, have caused considerable anxiety. And the way in which I think the guest list can be disaggregated would reflect again, I think, some of the concerns that China needs to address. But from the Chinese point of view, there is also a huge domestic compulsion, which is that the last few weeks have actually been very, very unexpected as far as China and its economic turbulence are concerned.
Right.
And I think for President Xi Jinping, all the more reason to use the parade as a means of burnishing not only his personal image, but also the primacy of the party and the way in which the military is subordinate to the Chinese Communist Party. And in many ways, I would see a sense of deja vu about what Chairman Mao had exhorted both the party and the military to conform to in terms of how China sees itself.
Right. Well, Commodore Uday Bhaskar, always pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for speaking to us about China's victory parade. As you're seeing on the screens right now, it is designed to be a grand demonstration of the country's military prowess. And also, on one hand, a very useful opportunity for the Chinese military to showcase their, weapons and other wares.